Remember when we used to talk about the paperless office?
E-commerce?
Signing a contract on paper.
And even giving out an agent's pager number?
We're in a mobile world.
We're in a mobile world, and your business needs to be too.
It's a digital world.
Workflow is changing, and so too are our experiences.
There are over 350 PropTech players right now
Competing for the space.
How do you keep up with it all? And what's next?
Welcome to Founders.
A new podcast with Josh Phegan
On the future of workflow in real estate.
Navigating the future is one of the great skills of any real estate agent. Understanding what to do in the digital world and what's actually happening at a marketing level is a really important part. And today, we're joined by one of the best in the business, in Danielle Harmer, the Group Director of Product at Domain. Danny, it's awesome to spend some time with you today. How long have you been inside of the portal space and inside of the Domain family and understanding what's happening in the digital world?
Yeah, cool. Thanks for having me, Josh. It's great to be here. I actually live in Canberra, so it's awesome to be in Sydney, which I am very regularly. I've worked with Domain for about 9 years. That's a lot of years. I spent most of that time running all homes in Canberra, the portal in Canberra, and now work for the bigger network. And before that with Fairfax, so the Fin Review, the SMH, the Age, and before that the New York Times in New York. So kind of been in this media / real estate space for a lot of my career.
Yeah. And so I'm going to say you started when you were 5 because that's a long time and you've actually been through a lot of things, which is amazing. Today we're going to talk a little bit about it because I think that agents are really looking for really good quality tools that can make it easier in front of sellers, in front of buyers, and got to have some different conversations about that. And, with mobilification of data and the speed of information, there's always been an app for that. And I think that it's really been lacking in the Australian residential real estate space about having an app that can provide you respectfully with insights when you're there at the listing presentation, when you're having a conversation around a price reduction, a conversation even with a buyer around what other buyers might be looking at to be doing better cross-selling, particularly if that buyer is also a seller, so really improving your market awareness of what people might be considering so you can have better quality conversations.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in that space, how Domain's evolving inside of that space, because there's a bit of a change going on for agents about how they can gain that information and compare the pair and do those things to understand how campaigns are going in terms of campaign metrics.
Yeah, cool. There is always an app for that. And what we've learned at Domain, we sit on these incredible insights and we are building, quite a data asset, but real time. And what we found was we were not getting that in the hands when it was needed by agents. And so we have actually just released a new app called Skylight. It's actually gone out to our Platinum Edge subscribers first, but it will go nationally. It's a real-time data app. And there's nothing else like it, particularly around campaigns. So if your listing has gone live on Domain, you will immediately see how many views, how many inquiries, what's happening with that. And we know that first 24 hours of any campaign, particularly a sale campaign, you can get a really good insight into how that campaign's going to go. And so we really focused on that sort of, direct insight, but on those key conversations. And the reason why we kind of have taken that, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the features though, is we worked with agents. So this we had over 100 interviews. A lot of what we've built in this app, there's an app for that, has actually come truly from the industry. And so as we talk through a couple of these different things, those key conversation, those points in the listing, with your vendors or winning the listing, we've really focused on that area first, on that data assets.
And that's a really important conversation to think about. So what problems does it solve? So let's go and have a quick look at that because there's some things that I can go and have a look at. So maybe we go into the point of some of the tools that are there because there is a really basic one that I like is I go and have a look at my existing campaign and I see how it's going.
Yep.
And then I can do specific actions with that data or that intel to, spur on the other marketing assets that are sitting inside of the subscription with that property.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if the listing's going well and you're seeing amazing results, fantastic. That's a win, right? You're going to move the listing on, get a fantastic price. We've got tools in there where if it's not, and if perhaps it's not performing as well and maybe the agent needs to have that listing conversation or that price conversation, what are we going to do with it? Do we lower the price? Can we bump it? Do we get another e-brochure, give it some love? We've got those tools in Skylight that help that. The comparables is where we've really focused pretty hard, which is, again, when we were speaking to agents, it was like, how do we let the vendor know that their listing is not performing well, or how it's performing with other listings? And
that's kind of interesting, because most people think about a comparable being a sale that's happened, as opposed to, hang on a second, what's the buyer actually looking at? So I think that most sellers, and I know this sounds funny, they think that when they list, that they are exclusive, that there's no one else on the market that a buyer would consider. So that one down the road, if it's got a pool or it's got an extra car space for the money, that might actually attract the buyer if it's a similar price point. And so you can now go in and see how your campaign's going against rival campaigns.
Yeah, against where the same buyers that have looked at that listing, what listings they're looking at. So not just the ones that are on the market, we have that too, or the ones that have recently sold. It's like the Amazon, if someone's bought what you're looking for, what else have they been buying, or what are they looking at? So
people who are looking at this are also looking at this.
Correct. That's the competition, right?
And so then you can then go to show about how your listing's comparing in terms of the views and the interactions and the activity that's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've found already that's being used currently now. It's only been live for, a few weeks in those conversations, which is amazing. And that's only going to improve. We're going to try and basically get more information, more real-time information on those comparables. So it's pretty cool.
So on an iPhone, so you're there, you could be out and open for inspection, you could be having a bit of a look around. And where I like this, I know this sounds funny, but sometimes I'm like, if I have a buyer-seller walk through a property, and I know that ultimately if I find them something to buy, then they're going to sell their house with me. To improve my level of market knowledge and awareness, okay, well, you've walked through this one, but if this one doesn't suit and you needed that extra garage or the slightly larger land area, then go and have a look at this one. And so I might even be referring to another agent's listing, because I know if they buy that, then I'm going to pick up their listing. And so this is the hardest part is that, and I think that this is particular, if you're really good in a core market, then you know a lot about what's going on. But the moment you list that one that's just outside of your normal market, your market knowledge kind of drops to zero. And so this is about improving knowledge quickly, so then you can be better. And then actually then starting to think that, hey, if I'm sitting inside of a campaign reset meeting, so Danny, look, let's have a quick look about how the property is actually going. Let's have a look at the marketing compared to where we're at. Hey, look, if we do make a change in relation to price, here are the tools that we've still got available. So we can bump it up in terms of the search results. We can do that extra email blast. We can have a conversation around how we might actually have a look at some extension products in Social Boost, to assist, so that if we do make a change on sale method or maybe pricing, or we change photos or video, then ultimately let's now use the tools that are already sitting inside of the subscription, or some add-on products that might help me to get to a different audience.
100%. Spot on.
Okay. And then if you're thinking about then, okay, great, you're there at the listing presentation, because that's very much once it's listed. What are some of the things that are also sitting inside of that app that makes it easier for a seller to go, hey, Danny knows what she's talking about, and also too, she can show me in real world how these things are happening. Yeah.
And look, I think we all understand it's getting harder to sell marketing products. There's so much available these days. And, we look at VPA trends or vendor paid advertising trends. You've got the portals, but you've got all of the other things that you can spend on now. Social media sits in there, the pamphlets, the photography, the drone footage, everything is there. And it actually gets really hard for the agents to justify and to explain that to a vendor, right? And so what we've found, actually, it was just in the last week, we had an awesome agent just download the Skylight app. They had a listing presentation in the afternoon, and they were pitching particularly what they wanted to sell within their marketing package. And when Domain came up, the agent pulled out Skylight. They'd only just logged on that day, pulled open their other listings that had performed really well, and essentially said, you've got to have Domain, because here's how my listings have been performing. No question. Vendor ticked Domain, and actually the campaign will go and perform very, very well. I'd say they'll be very happy, but it just gives them another tool. When there's so much to choose from, it's so important that value is recognised, and that, Domain sees we've got to get that value in the hands of the agent so that they can use it for the vendor.
And this is a big conversation too about accessibility to audience. If there's over 1 million people that are on Domain that aren't on others, then you don't want to miss those people.
You cannot miss them. Why would you?
And the basic foundation idea too is about understanding how consumers actually do what they do. So I know this sounds really funny, but I went through an open for inspection recently, and the agent gave me a physical brochure. brochure. I'm like, okay, cool. Now that goes in the car. Anyone who jumps in the car with me is like, oh, are you buying a new house?
Yep.
Then all of a sudden that goes in the house. Anyone who's coming over is like, oh, are you buying a new house?
Yep.
And then as I walked out, the agent then sent me an SMS. I'm assuming they're using HomePass at this point.
I hope so.
And
Absolutely.
and then I then click on that link. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. So then I forwarded on to mum and dad, and I forwarded on to my good friend Con. And then before you know it, my mum rings me 3 days later and she's like, are you buying that house? I'm like, why? She goes, well, like literally I clicked on the link and now it keeps following me on all the social. I'm like, agents using Social Boost. And so now my mum's asking me about whether or not I'm buying the house, because we've learned that if someone clicks on the link, they then get followed on social. And then off the back of that, the stakeholders in the transaction, better known as my mum and dad and Con, my good friend, are now like, oh, you should buy it, Josh. And then before you know it, they're like encouraging me and egging me on to do this activity.
And suddenly you've bought the house.
And so like literally if you start thinking about it, it's like, how do consumers actually work?
Yeah.
It's kind of like when someone's like, oh, why do all these ads keep appearing on social? I'm like, pretty sure you went to that website.
You must have clicked through something or spoken about it.
Honey, I'm not sure how those Callaway golf clubs keep appearing. So that's that whole basic foundation of really getting it right. So Skylight is incredible. That's now out in market. Literally that will then go more
Platinum
broadly.
Edge. Yeah, that'll go more broad in the next few months.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the next conversation is then to think about, I'm a bit confused. I know you're a bit of a specialist on this. I keep hearing about first party and third party data. And I've just been to the UK, so I don't know if I'm even saying the word data right. It could be data. So from that point of view, what is this whole notion of first party data and how does that work versus third party data? What does that do? And why do agents need to be aware of it?
Look, there is a lot of, I guess maybe a misrepresentation or a misunderstanding or maybe not enough understanding around what data is, how it can be used, how it can be stored, what does it look like over time? I think it's getting crazy now thinking about AI and meaningful data. And there is no question that every agency, every portal, anyone in the business of real estate should not be, we should all be collecting and maintaining and doing something of value with first-party data. But
so what is first party? So if I meet you at an open home, then I take your first name, your surname, your email address and mobile number.
That's all first-party data.
That's first party. Okay.
Yep.
What's third-party data then? Like, is that where you're buying that through a subscription where you have not yet met the customer as a part of that?
It can be... It could be that. It's more likely to be that you've kind of shared a piece of information, like your email with someone, and they've got more information on you. So
it enriches that information about what I've done.
Yeah, and you can purchase that. That can be quite expensive. It might not be that valuable. To be honest, the most valuable...
Like court records, for example.
The most valuable data for an agency, for an agent, and we kind of just spoke about this earlier, is one is the data you collect, particularly at an inspection, because you're literally seeing that person. You can trust that data. You're usually getting their phone number and an email address, a contact at least. Ideally, you get an address. That is the nirvana. But anywhere where you can collect personal information about yourself that's structured is fantastic. I think a lot of people talk about first-party data being, other pieces that might be geo, where you're searching, you can collect stuff.
About your activity, of what you're doing online.
Activity domain collects, pretty amazing information about your behaviour on site. Social media does that. We share that. That's how we get the retargeting. So, really the crux of it for an agency is that contact detail and their address, and maybe the stage that they're up to.
Which is where Domain builds a great audience for you, because they know that they were already searching on the site or they're searching for something of a similar type.
Yep.
So because I get confused with all the different social
overlaid
products that are around.
Yes.
So if I've actually got a social product that's got a very specific audience, that's already got digital intent and is shown by the behaviour to do that, then I then know that literally that advertising spend is going to increase the size of audience and therefore the number of buyers that come to my property.
Correct. So ROI, right? So first place. So there's this kind of myth around if any social activity has to come to our website. Now, if you've got a really good technology stack and you've got a good website and your customers trust you enough to go and sort of inquire on your site, fantastic, keep that. But if you're just sending people to a fairly shitty website that perhaps you don't collect, and maybe your brand might not be big enough yet, so that's a waste of money. You're probably not getting the highest intent. And actually sending people to a domain where there is a lot of trust, you're much more likely to get a converted high intent buyer. So there's there is a few funny little rumours going around about first-party data, and yes, it's important, but I would recommend clicking through on understanding what it is, how you can use it, what actually is of value, when is the most important points when it is valuable.
And I think that this is the whole reason why a lot of agents have loved HomePass because, Josh has come back for a second look.
Yes.
And I know that sounds really funny, but how you were entering that into a CRM manually, or what you might have been doing through like some sort of CRM app.
Yep.
Is it actually showing it that person's actually come back for a second look? And by the way, the intent of the automation, once someone walks out of an open for inspection, what link do they get? What do they click on? And how does that insight then change about intent, but also to that like make it easier for the customer. So if they want to get copies of contracts and XYZ, like that sort of stuff starts to become critically important, right?
So on that, we're actually just about to, and Josh didn't know about this before we spoke in the podcast, but we're just about to launch a little enrichment so people who come and inspect, we're in HomePass and in Skylight through an inquiry going to give a score around how high intent they are as a buyer or as a seller. And so that's really, again, that's that sort of data that we know about. We think we're showing signs of a really high intent seller. Speak to them first as an agent because you want their listing.
Is that propensity data?
Yeah, it's...
like likelihood to do something because they've been doing those actions.
Absolutely. Likelihood to do something. Now, it's not spot on, it's indicative, but if we can give any sort of indication to an agent at the point in time when someone's hitting an inspection, at the point of inquiry, we want to let them know what that intent is because that will serve an agent so well. If they're a buyer, a really high likelihood to buy and likelihood to sell, you want to contact them pretty quickly, right?
Founders is brought to you by Josh Phegan Digital. When we were setting out to go and create Josh Phegan Digital, we just had this whole idea that we wanted training to be on demand. And everything in our life is on demand. We just press play inside of the Netflix app. We press play on YouTube, play on Spotify. Why couldn't we just press play on training? And what we decided is we want to be like super relevant to real estate agents so that in under a couple of minutes each day, if you wanted to, you could upskill and you could grow in new ways. And so we decided that we were going to release this thing that we called The Edit, which is basically the latest in property news stories that's happening every week right the way around the country. So you could be incredibly sharp in your conversations with sellers. And then we built out the short courses, which was all about rapidly building skills, whether or not it's about learning how to get better fees or to put on an assistant. And then we actually wanted to give you access to blueprints, so you didn't have to wait for it every year. You could just watch it whenever you wanted and actually go from zero to hero around everything that it takes, from goal setting, self and energy management, what you're doing around prospecting, listing, negotiation, and actually just have a system for the way that you work. Together with, getting really inspired by some of the best people in the industry with the black and white interviews. Josh Phegan Digital is available on iOS and also on Android. It's an incredible app and it gives you everything that you'll need to be a much better agent. It's time to switch on.
So would it be that agents have probably underplayed or undervalued first-party data when, for example, technology businesses would love to have access to that first-party data because then what it allows them to be able to do in building profiles or enrichment data about a particular client? And it's like agents are like, I don't really get email addresses anymore. It opens, not worth it.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, get the email address, get their address, get their phone number. And I think what we want to do is, Skylight is one mechanism to get data into the hands of agents, but it's more about us getting it in the hands of the agencies who might have this so that they can overlay that. Like that's we're trying to, collect and provide this information to these agencies who can then go on and use it to... I feel like that's what differentiates agencies these days is their ability to nurture, to know where to find this stuff and to know what to do with it, to use it to their advantage.
And that's that whole, the whole story is about like really learning how to use data. So I used to say to people, cool, we do 20 open homes and we meet, 10 people at each and it's 200 buyers and we times that by 4 and it's 800 buyers that we meet and we sell 20 a month, which means we've got 780 buyers left over.
Yep.
And that was kind of cool. And then other agencies would come out and say, we have 1.9 billion people on our database, which is not the whole of Australia's population times by a lot.
Yep. Who are those people?
And a second, but these three are the most likely to buy. Yep. So Danny's just had a baby, Nick's in a position that he's got a job relocation, and we're in a position right now that Damien actually has to move to the area because he's just sold last weekend.
Yep.
And so what I'm going to tell you is that should you make the decision to select me as your agent, I'd be thrilled to represent you.
Yep.
I want to try to bring those three through. So how important is it for agents to be able to tell a story and to allow data to back up that story about the people that we've met or the properties that are competing, and learning to actually tell that in more powerful stories so that consumers can get it and go, yep, you're my agent now because of that, or I'm going to trust your advice because of what you're showing me.
Well, I mean, as a buyer or a seller, I guess, you're putting your trust in an agent and you want to know that they're the expert. And so anything that provides, and this is our job at Domain, honestly, this is what we're doing. We want to supply enough data and insight, whether that be real time or, markets data through Price Finder or, propensity data through Skylight. We're trying to set up the agent to be the expert. And any way they can do that, even, outside Domain, that allows someone to trust them in a very crazy environment where data and information is everywhere. It's almost getting more important to hear it from an agent and to have that agent have that valuable voice.
And that's that whole conversation, is that do you trust me? And then am I therefore easily influenced by you? Yeah. Because you've actually got a data-led approach, but also too, you've also got emotion and logic combined in a powerful storytelling way that I just get it and accept it. Yep. And so that's that whole conversation where I go, oh, hey, Danny, have you ever been to a website and then you find that it follows you on social? Well, that's the same thing we do with our properties now. So when it goes on to the Domain website, it'll also then turn up in your social if you're going to have a look at that. Yep. And hey, by the way, what we actually then find is that then when we're on social, they click on the link and then they go back to the website, and the website then knows that they've got a higher intent. They serve it back in social, and then you stay in the loop of doom until you buy. Has that ever happened to you? And people are like, oh no, that happens to me all the time. We now do that with property.
It's funny, it happens in any industry, right?
Yes.
You talk
whether or not
about
it's a car or whether or not you're getting your hair cut.
Yeah, absolutely. I always talk about Porsches, and suddenly I get Porsches and I can't afford a Porsche, so it's a real pity. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, but you're touching on there, you don't want to get creepy though, and that's probably...
It's learning how to tell a story that actually explains how modern consumers do it.
Absolutely.
And so I'm just like that whole line of, okay, cool, it does show up in social, and then you remember it and you click back and you go to the website and you read more about it, and then you click the inquire button and then you turn up at the open house. Yep. And so and even that little story about, hey,
reminder.
We do two brochures, the physical brochure and then the electronic brochure, which is the link. Yep. And we find that people forward the link on to mum, dad and friends. And then before you know it,
they encourage them even more.
Yeah, and so that's about understanding how people got to make decisions.
Yep.
Now, this is a really interesting topic because it leads us into this whole idea of positioning.
Yep.
And I'm going to feel old now in saying this, but I used to just sell newspaper ads back in the day before the internet was starting to become around.
Beautiful. God, weren't they simple days?
Full page, half page, quarter.
That was all agents had to sell.
Yeah, and that whole idea was about thinking about depth. So if you really wanted presence, you just do a big full page ad, or then you do a half page ad or a quarter page ad. Yep. And it was a kind of a way to kind of sell and separate and differentiate. Do you think that agents have kind of struggled with that now, that it kind of felt like it was difficult for them to be able to get presence around what they were doing with digital marketing?
Yeah, I feel like we're in a similar space digitally, although it is, when you double click on that, it's far more diverse. But what they were getting in a full page, though, was not only the more photos, higher presence, probably higher, in the pages, in the magazine pages, you'd be at the front.
Yes.
So we
or the double page in the middle.
Page in the middle.
Or the wraparounds.
And then agencies would argue, we'd have to rotate, because I've also been around running magazines, around the All Homes magazine, but rotation of which agencies go first. So you wanted to be at the front of the mag or closest to the front. So the order wanted to be higher, and you wanted to have the bigger pages. And that actually helped your brand presence. So not only did it shed a light on the listing, but it helped with your branding, because you'd have 3 or 4 pages. And if an agent had 10 pages, and gone were the days when we had 150-page magazines, when, the Lutons in Canberra had 20 pages. But now that's converted digitally. So now that's important online, right? And so that order in the magazine and that large page versus small page is also happening online. And that's what we call depth. That's the ranking of your listing products when you search.
And I'm not that educated. I just go, so we'll get it on page 1 or we'll get it at the top versus being right at the bottom a couple of pages in.
Correct.
And so literally when people quickly search, literally what's the default order that comes on, that's how we give presence.
Yep.
One of the things that I really got schooled on in having a look at our customers talk is about, well, hang on a second, there's actually now different things that we've got that are the tools that sit within inside of that listing that allow us to try to boost audience at different times throughout the course of the campaign. So that might be, for example, I've got like an e-brochure and e-blast that goes out. Maybe I might have 2 of those. It might be at the start of the campaign. It might be the week before auction, or I might do it the day before I sell it. It might be the conversation that I might boost it up in terms of the search results, so it's closer to the top than at the bottom. There might be some social extension type products like a social boost, for example, where I'm making sure, well, if they do go to the domain site, then it should then appear in their socials. And, so you're understanding how consumers are working. Is it important for an agent to start to really have a look at what are you actually buying? What are the tools that you've got available? And how easy is it to apply those tools? Because now with something like Skylight, you can go, okay, great, I actually want to do that now. Let's put out the e-brochure and make that happen. And you could almost be doing that as you're achieving the price reduction from the client to make that happen, in a more timely manner than waiting for admin to turn up on Monday, as an example, in sort of traditional agency.
No, and this is the difference between print. You couldn't change that, once it goes out in the mag, or you miss the mag, or whereas now we can do this stuff. We can see how it's operating, and we've got those levers. And so, yes, I think the first lever you have is actually early access. If you're on Platinum Edge, you can actually get a sense of the market first. So you can go out first, then you can go to market, then you can see, all right, on Domain, we do actually have social as part of the listing. So remember, there is a just listed. On Platinum Edge, you also get, I think, at least 3 posts along that journey of the listing, and then a sold one. But yeah, you can use Skylight, you can use whatever to find out how well is it going. You've got access to bumps and e-brochures. This stuff agents should be using. And I think what we find is they're not using it enough to their credit, and they're really important.
Learning how to use it is also too like an objection handler. So let's say, for example, to be honest, Josh, you don't really sell a lot of properties in our area. You do a lot in the next neighbourhood, but not necessarily in our neighbourhood. Well, the benefit is that literally with our domain, we've actually got access to early access. And what that does, that gives us access to effectively Domain's entire database of buyers that are looking for properties just like
in that area
that have been doing those sort of transactional searches over the course of a period of time. So we can actually equalise that any other agent who said that actually they know all the buyers. Well, technically, Domain also knows all the buyers, and we've now got access for that. And that might be the way that you handle that objection when you're not the dominant agent in a marketplace. Outside of that, you go, okay, great. Maybe it's a great way to go to test on what's happening with pricing, or to understanding about like who's in market right now before we actually then go live to market. And then starting to think, well, very differently, like what we've got to understand is that how consumers actually go to do search, and then how that relates. So the website goes to the social goes back to the website, that drives the inquiry goes to the open home gets their home pass link, the home pass link then gets it to
collect all the first party data as you're getting them at the inspection.
Yes. And then drive that entire marketing. So it's really about thinking about integrated. And you and I were talking a little bit earlier today about like price reductions. And one of the things that we've done a lot with agents is we say, hey, there should be a bit of like a campaign reset menu. So in the way that we go to work with people, what are some of the things that we can actually do to go and reset the entire campaign? And this is not a hard thing where you just go, okay, great. At a marketing level, we've got some basics. We can change photos. We can change videos. We can change copy. We can also bump it up. We can do the social advertising. We can be in a position that we can get all of that to happen. The e-brochure alerts, all of that's happening. And then the next conversation after that, maybe we could change sale method, go to auction, push the auction date out, make it for sale. Or maybe we could change pricing. So we change pricing, we change it to a price range. And in some states, we take the price off. In some states, we have to put a price on, depending on your state or territory and its legislation. But the foundational idea, Mr. and Mrs. Owner, here is a list of the things that we could do. Now, I love that because you go, oh, Josh, let's just do the bump. Okay, good. Now, Danny, we're definitely going to go and do that. But to be honest, I don't think it's going to be enough. And the reason that I'd say that is that these are the other properties that people are considering. So let's have a look at what's actually happening inside of my Skylight app. We're going to need to change the price as well. And we can run it as it is for another week, but I would love your instruction. I think it's going to need to be closer to 950 than it will be at the million. And if we did that this week, I think it would be the difference in us actually getting sold or not. And so like this is about like learning how to give people a menu, even if some of those things are untenable. So in other words, not that attractive inside of the menu. Josh, we're not going to reshoot the video. Okay, great, no problems. We'll leave that as it is. But would you let me do that?
And you've got the options.
And then what I then say to people is that, hey, Danny, if we do make a change in price, this is exactly what I'm going to do. We are going to go back to all of the current buyers and let them know that there's a new price. We're going to go to all buyers that have walked through other properties of a similar type and let them know about the new price. We're going to go to previous market appraisals in the price range before and let them know there's a new price on this one and it's really good value and they should come and have a look at it.
Yep.
We're also going to be in a position that then we're going to do the bump and we're also going to do the e-brochure to go out. We're going to make all of those things happen, and then I'm also going to run a midweek open for inspection time on Wednesday to see whether or not we can get extra buyers down to the property. And so now the owner's actually knowing what you're going to do if there is a price reduction. And what I've often found is that an agent will get a price reduction and then turn up next Saturday and hope it worked.
Yeah.
And I think that like we're now in a new world where you've got to like be really showing really good quality checklists and that these are the things that we're going to go and do, because it gives people confidence. When that then sells, that then gets people to go, oh, you're seriously good at this. And that's where the referral happens,
Absolutely.
which agents have kind of missed out on, right?
Can I ask a question on that one? You probably know because I'm interested, but like that, is that actually important to let when you're winning the listing as well, to let the vendor know, hey, you've got access to these tools. Mm-hmm. If in doubt or something, the campaign's not going as expected. Now, look, it's going to go as expected because here's my marketing schedule that I'm recommending. But is that kind of important to let the vendor know that you actually have all of those tools, in your kit? Because I feel like not every agent has all of those tools, and that's a differentiator, right, for an agent.
And I think the big conversation is too, is it like saying, well, like when we have a look at the vendor report and we track how your property campaign's going, inquiries, inspections, second inspections, changes to terms or offers, if we're not where we need to be at, I've got a range of tools that we can go to. So, for example, if we do make a change on sale method or price, then these are the different tools that I've already got sitting inside of that. And I think that this is the big difference. Like you're going from, hey, I'm just going to be at the top of the search results to now I'm going to not only being at the top of the search results, but also to I've now got a whole swagger, so to speak, of tools that I can use at different points inside of the campaign to drive interest and to drive activity.
Yep.
And so don't leave behind the tools that you've got. And there's a great example of that. You're about to sell a property tomorrow. We'll bump it and use that last e-brochure if you've got that to then make sure that you're getting that property in front of everyone just before it sells.
Yep.
And I think that maybe that's been a bit hidden, whereas now all of a sudden, because it's on a mobile device and you're seeing it, you can actually get access to
go and do it. And the agents, often before this, they're like an admin person might have had to do that. Mm-hmm. The agents have access to do that now. The admin can still do it if that's the way they operate, but 100%, it's game changing.
So the new stats I saw in this recently, 6 to 8 hours a day on a mobile device. Danny, what are we watching?
Video.
And what sort of videos are we watching? Property videos. That's exactly right.
That's all I watch.
So from that point of view,
not Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, but
automated video. Tell us a little about what's happening there from Domain's perspective.
Yeah, so this is one we've kept an eye on, and it is no surprise. I think a lot of people are spending time on social media. They're spending time online. Everyone's looking at property candy, but when they're in Reels and when they're on social, like it is all video, and so we're moving pretty quickly away from static, and so. We've really invested actually recently, and this is also part of every Platinum Edge domain listing, a video asset. And it goes onto social, so it gets onto Reels and Stories. And that is where a significant proportion of people's time is being spent. So video is a huge factor, and that is like short videos, Reels and things like people have a short attention span. They're clicking through pretty quickly, but that is where it's at. That's something to be thinking about, and we're obviously thinking about pretty heavily.
So if you're an agent right now and you're thinking, hey, I need to lean a bit more in and learn a bit more about this, from Skylight to data to help me to position my listings, having a look at some other tools that I might have available if I've got like a special listing or something slightly out of area, whether or not that be early access or things like Dream Homes, or I want to improve my automation, like with some of my systems, like, should I reconsider what's happening with Home Pass and where that's going as a product and how that might make it easier with me in terms of my buy work, or what is this automated video stuff and how do we get in play? Who do they get in contact with at Domain? Do they just go and have a chat to their rep? And how quickly can they deploy into things, for example, like Skylight, to be able to get access to that?
Oh, awesome. So contact your rep, although they should have emails in their inbox at the moment that have a pretty easy QR code to just scan and download and log in using your current domain agent admin. You already have an account. So it's very, very simple. Go on and do it, because we've just talked about some of these tools that can give you the edge and that real-time data. We're seeing agents win listings as a result of using it now. So very, very simple. But if you can't find it, contact your account manager. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is amazing to watch. Domain's got some incredible things happening over the course of the next 12 months. There's a lot of excitement in and around the brand about, some of the things that we're doing and the conversations around the technology that's coming to the past, but also too thinking about new and different ways of how to make the listings more dynamic, from automated video to the conversation around better quality data insights to allow you to be better with buyers and sellers. So literally, make sure you're on Domain and be in a position that literally you listen to some of the things that you can be doing to be a much better agent. Danny, awesome to spend some time with you today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's been great. Can't wait to come back.